The Riddles. Over the centuries, tales have migrated widely and have been used by nationalists, followers of creeds and followers of individuals to support their cause or interest. Hence the same tale is told of Mullah Nasruddin in Iran and of Ivan the Terrible in Russia, of Buddha and of a Christian saint, of William Tell in Switzerland, and about Mongol and other heroes. Although the original intention may have been to strengthen the creed or individual, or even accidental adoption, the price paid has sometimes proved to be rather high. When the tale is shown to have been known before the date of the supposed exploit, great disappointment can set in. Almost the only recourse for those wanting to continue to believe that, for instance, the Arthurian sword in the stone incident was original in Britain was to claim polygenesis, multiple and independent invention in different places through coincidence of thought. The Nordic and Mongolian accounts of wonderful swords could thus be accounted for, as well as the Arabian narrative of Antar the Mighty, and the similarity to the legends of the Staff of Moses among the Jews. Substantially, the following tale on the riddle theme is found both in 11th century Welsh and also in India of about 2,000 years ago. It must be one of the most widespread conceptions, for examples have been collected from every part of Europe, as well as in Arabia, Africa, Mongolia, and the Philippines. Clever girls killing demons and marrying kings, not to speak of magical deaths and the effect of unusual circumstances, are clearly of the greatest intercultural attraction. This version is found in Turkestan, where the Russian, Turanian, and Iranian ethnic groups meet. There was a time, and there was not a time, when the sky was green and the earth a thick stew. There was a king in the mountain fastness of the Pamir Mountains on the borders of China, India, and the God-given kingdom of Afghanistan. The ruler of that kingdom was very wise, very brave and strong, very chivalrous and very rich. Everyone loved him, and they respected his justice, his mercy, and his honesty. Then one day he made a strange announcement, and the heralds cried it through the land. One must come to me, neither clothed nor naked, neither afoot nor on a horse, and speak to me neither indoors nor out. If this person comes, the country will be saved. If not, we shall all be destroyed. Everyone was amazed by the king's edict, and for long nothing happened, until one day a young girl said quite unexpectedly to her father, a poor firewood collector, "Father, I must go to the king. I know how we can be saved, and by this means we shall also be released from our poverty." The wood collector was surprised, and he tried to deter her from her plan, but she would not be gainsaid, and so he reluctantly allowed her to leave their tiny cottage and travel where the king ruled. When the girl arrived at the king's palace, she lay down at the door and cried, "Come out, O king, for I am here to save your kingdom." The king asked, "What is that commotion?" "Your Majesty, there is some peasant girl shouting that you must see her, for she will save the country," answered the courtiers. The king went to the gate and saw the maiden lying across the threshold. "I am neither in nor out, and so I have fulfilled one thing you wanted," she said. "But," said the king, "what about being neither naked nor clothed?" But then he noticed that she was wearing a net, which covered her and yet did not. "I have been neither riding nor on foot," she explained, "because I came here dragged by a mountain goat." The king told her to enter the palace, and when they were seated in the full court, he said, "Know, O clever girl, that I am in the power of a terrible ghoul, a supernatural demon who says he will destroy the country. But he was heard to say in his sleep that only such a person as could do the things which I announced could save the kingdom." "I am ready to help," said the girl, But what do I do next?" "You must answer the following riddles," said the king. "They have been repeatedly cried out by the ghoul in its ravings. First, how many stars are in the sky?" "That's easy," said the maiden. "As many as there are hairs in a ghoul's head. This can be confirmed by plucking them out as you tell off each star, one by one." "Very well," said the king. "I shall tell him. But now to the next question. How far is it from here to the end of the earth?" The girl at once answered, "Just as far as the return journey from the end of the earth to here." "Very well," said the king. "I shall tell the ghoul. But now to the last question. How high is the sky?" The girl said, "There is no difficulty with that question. The sky is as high as a ghoul can kick itself. It is welcome to try if it does not believe me." "Very well," said the king. "I shall tell the ghoul." The ghoul returned from a hunting expedition a few hours later, and it said to the king in a voice like thunder, "Stupid king, have you the answers to the riddles of vulnerability yet?" The king told him what the maiden had told him. The ghoul was furious. "Those are the right answers, but you still have to pass the final test. This is concerned with the method of killing me. I am to be killed only by someone who is neither man nor beast, by someone who does it neither by day nor night, someone who offers me a present which is not a present, neither by metal nor rope nor poison nor stone nor fire nor water, one who is neither eating nor fasting at the time." And the ghoul then went up into a huge tree to sleep, for he was gorged with food from his hunting. He raved away in his sleep in quite an alarming manner. The king reported the conversation to the wood-collector's daughter. "Nothing simpler," she said. "I shall start very soon." Then, when it was twilight, neither day nor night, she went to the bottom of the tree where the ghoul was sleeping and shouted, "Wake up, ghoul, for your last moment has come. I am a woman, neither man nor beast. It is neither day nor night. Here is my present which is not a present." And she held out a bird. When the ghoul tried to take it, it flew away. The ghoul realized that this gift was indeed not one. "But you must be either eating or fasting," it roared. "I am doing neither. I am chewing a piece of bark," the maid shouted back. And as she said these words, the ghoul, overcome by rage, toppled to the ground. He was not killed by sword or spear, by rope or arrow, by poison or by anything else other than his own fury which caused him to fall to the ground, where his tremendous weight smashed him to death. "Now," said the king, as soon as everyone had stopped shaking from the earth tremor which the impact had caused, "tell me one last thing, maiden. What am I thinking?" "That I am so clever and attractive that you will marry me," said the girl. And she was right. So they were married, and they ruled the land together for the rest of their long and happy lives. The Grateful Animals and the Ungrateful Man. This Tibetan tale, taken from Indian sources by Anton von Schiefner, is supposed to inculcate a Buddhist message that animals are reincarnated people. But the underlying idea that animals are all better than some people has been seen by some observers as showing this to be a survival of an animal worship tale, incorporated incompletely into the Buddhist atmosphere. The story travelled westwards through the Indian Panchatantra collection in Sanskrit of about 750 AD, into the Syriac Kalilag and Damnag, and then into the Arabic version of the same anthology. From there, about 1080 AD, it was put into Greek by Simeon Seth. The Latin translation, through the Hebrew, was made by Johannes of Capua in the 13th century, and from that book it was diffused into Spanish, German, French, Italian, and English. Hence the story has a traceable literary ancestry far more complete than the majority of world tales. The great King Richard the Lionhearted is recorded as having often related a version of this tale after his return from the Crusades. It was certainly current in Palestine when Richard was there, so Matthew Paris, a monk of the Abbey of St. Albans, was probably correct in this assertion, which he wrote in his chronicle in 1195 AD, 4 years before King Richard died. In very ancient times, King Brahmadatta was on the throne of Varanasi in India. One of his subjects was a man who went into the forest with his axe to chop wood, but while he was there he was chased by a lion and fell into a pit. The lion, who wanted to eat him, fell in as well, and so did a mouse which had been pursued by a snake. A falcon swooped on the mouse, but he got caught in the pit as well, entangled in the undergrowth. Their natures did not change when they found themselves trapped in this way, and all the predators wanted to kill, while the others were desperately anxious to escape. The wise lion, however, said to the animals, "You, honoured ones, are all my comrades. As things are at the moment, we are suffering intolerable distress through suffering. Let us not therefore expose one another to danger, but sit patiently without disturbance." Now fate so decreed that a hunter should be in the area, seeking gazelles, and came across the place where the animals were trapped. As soon as they realized that he was there, they shouted to him to save them. The hunter understood what had happened, and first of all helped the lion out of captivity. The great beast touched his feet in homage and said, "I shall show you my gratitude to you in due time. But do not draw out the black-headed one," the man, who of course had black hair, "for he forgets kindness is done to him." The hunter set the other creatures free, and they too expressed their gratitude to him, and he went on his way. On another occasion, the hunter came to the place where the lion had killed a gazelle, and the animal touched his feet and gave the game animal to him. It so happened some time afterwards that the king Brahmadatta had gone into the park with his wives, and after enjoying himself there, fell asleep. The ladies took off their clothes and roamed about the park, put aside their jewels and sat at ease, and generally relaxed. Now one of the women had put her jewellery down and fell asleep. The falcon, which had been keeping an eye on everything on the ground, swooped down, took up the gems, and flew with them to the hunter, to whom he presented them. Presently the king and his womenfolk awoke, and returned to Varanasi. But one of the wives said to her husband, "O king, my jewels have been lost in the park." The king gave orders that the missing objects should be found, and his ministers made the fullest inquiries. Word reached the black-headed man, who sometimes visited the hunter and knew that he had the ornaments, and how he got them. With ungrateful heart he went to the king and told him about this. The king was very angry. His men visited the hunter and said, "We know that you stole the royal ornaments from the park." The hunter was very frightened, and tried to explain what had happened, telling the whole story. But he was put in chains and thrown into prison. The mouse, however, came to know of what had happened. He went to the snake and said, "Our benefactor, the hunter, through the evil of the black-headed one, has been cast into prison. What can we do?" The snake said, "I shall see the hunter." He went to the hunter in his prison and said, "Today I will bite the king. As soon as it is known that this has happened, you will offer to cure him. When he accepts, you will use this special remedy. If you do that, there is no doubt that the king will, as a reward, free you and make you valuable gifts." So the snake bit the king, and the hunter cured him, and the king had him released and made him many presents. The value of a treasure hoard. Tales have wings, said Isaac Disraeli, whether they come from the east or from the north, and they soon become denizens wherever they alight. The Chinese story which follows, from a Hong Kong collection, is almost literally paralleled in a tale attributed to Laird Braco, an ancestor of the Earls of Fife in Scotland, who was a miser and one day showed a farmer his hoard. There are many cognates in as differing settings as the Sufi tales of Persia, and a recent one of the American millionaire who paid a colossal sum for a statue which he erected by the roadside. Once upon a time in China there was a priest who was both avaricious and rich. He loved jewels, which he collected, constantly adding more pieces to his wonderful hoard, which he kept securely locked away, hidden from any eyes but his own. Now the priest had a friend who visited him one day, and who expressed interest in seeing the gems. "I would be delighted to take them out, so that I, too, could look at them," said the priest. So the collection was brought, and the two feasted their eyes on the beautiful treasure for a long time, lost in admiration. When the time came for him to leave, the priest's guests said, "Thank you for giving me the treasure." "Do not thank me for something which you have not got," said the priest, "for I have not given you the jewels, and they are not yours at all." His friend answered, "As you know, I have had as much pleasure from looking at the treasures as you, so there is no difference between us, as you yourself only look at them, except that you have the trouble and expense of finding, buying, and looking after them." Patient Griselda. Over a century ago, a German encyclopedia entry listed the bibliography of Patient Griselda in no fewer than 15 columns. The story appears in Chaucer's Canterbury Tales as the Clerk's Tale, and Griselda's patience, not her husband's arguable insanity, always seem to be the point noted and stressed. Chaucer took the story from Petrarch's Latin. He in turn got it from the last tale in Boccaccio's Decameron, and he from a French tale, Parlement des Femmes. It is found in a Fansieff's Russian anthology, and was also collected in one form by the brothers Grimm. And yet, as Brewer's dictionary has it, Griselda's trials are almost as unbelievable as the fortitude with which he is credited to have borne them. Griselda's husband seems a monster who took away her children and made her feel for years that they had been killed, just to test her. When she had been tested, they lived happily ever after. Strange though Dr. Brewer may understandably find this theme, the Indian cognate, while perhaps explaining the husband's conduct, seems to raise more questions than it answers. According to the ancient Nidanakatha of Buddhist birth stories, Mangala Buddha was involved in a parallel experience. A demon, disguised as a Brahmin, asked him for his 2 children. He handed them over joyfully. The demon then devoured the children, and the Bodhisattva felt no sorrow. On the contrary, he felt rather a great joy and satisfaction. As a consequence, he was almost instantly transformed into the Buddha. Both versions are religious. The test is administered in the one case by a husband, standing for the divine testing of humanity, in the other by a demon. In the one case, the woman benefits by attaining happiness, so that her husband was really being cruel to be kind. In the other, the father, the Bodhisattva, benefits to the extent of actually becoming Buddha. Although many people of today will have difficulty in understanding the mentality of ancient Eastern and Western audiences, and the promoters of the tale, its tremendously wide currency in ancient and medieval cultures and its frequent literary use give it a place here. This is how it is told by Chaucer. Once upon a time there was a nobleman called Walter, who was both good and powerful, much beloved by his people. After a time, when he had not married, they sent a deputation to him, saying, "Marquis, please marry a wife, so that we may have your son to take your place when you are gone from us." And he replied, "I shall marry when I find one whom I can love and find suitable." So they had to be content. Now there was a poor man living humbly with his daughter Griselda near a well of fresh water. Walter was riding by when he saw the girl, tall and beautiful, carrying a pot of water on her head. He asked her for a drink, and then noticing that she was lovelier than any woman he had ever seen, wished to marry her. In her one simple smock and barefoot, she arrived at the castle. Women attendants bathed her, dressed her in fine clothes, and prepared her for marriage to their noble lord. After the extravagant wedding and great rejoicing of the people, Walter took Griselda into a private room and said, "Now, wife, you must obey me in all that I wish, and respect my thoughts and commands whatever they may be." So she promised that she would, and for a while they were very happy indeed. In a year's time a daughter was born to them, a very beautiful child, as fair as her mother. Now came the first great test of Griselda's married life. Her husband came to her and said, "The people who love me are dissatisfied with you. They say that I should not have married someone in such a low station of life as yourself. They do not wish me to have children by you, so the child must be taken away and killed." Griselda was stricken to the heart, but she knew she must do everything her husband required, so she agreed to have the child taken away to be killed in a remote spot. As the huntsman came in to drag the little girl from her arms, she held her for just a moment, and said calmly to him, "Do bury her deep in the earth when it is done, that she will not be torn by wild beasts." Then she kissed her daughter and sat silently for a while. Not for a moment did she think ill of her husband or cry out in her pain. Her life with Walter continued as before, with but one difference, that she never mentioned her daughter's name. Another year passed, and a son of great beauty was born to Griselda. The loss of the other child seemed to have faded from her mind as Griselda cradled her son in her arms, singing to him softly as she fed him. Walter appeared to be satisfied with her, and it seemed that all was well with their life together. But when the boy was 2 years old, Griselda had a severe test of her love for her husband. He once more said to her, "Wife, the people are very distressed in case the grandson of a peasant like your father should inherit my land and rule them. They demand that he, too, be taken from you and killed. It is my will that this should be done." And he left her without another word. Patient Griselda held the child for the last time and kissed it. Then she said to the same huntsman who had taken away her daughter, "Bury the body deep in the earth, where no beasts or birds of prey can reach him." And without so much as a tear she handed over the infant, wrapped in his warmest clothes against the morning's chill. After that day she did not speak of the baby, yet she treated her husband with the same tenderness and respect as always. She ran the great house with perfect calm and dignity, as if indeed she had been a true noblewoman instead of a poor peasant's daughter, brought up in poverty. Now in reality Walter was not guilty of his children's murder, but had dispatched them to his sister's country estate, there to be brought up in luxury and kindness by her. He thought to test Griselda, hoping to find in her character some flaw, some chink in that armour of calm, that goodness of spirit and heart which he could scarcely believe was true and real. For, he thought, she cannot be as good and as true as she appears, devoted to me even after these apparently savage acts of mine. Yet I will test her further. So he said to her, Griselda, I have some news for you which I must tell you now. For some time past my life has not been happy, and my love for you has died. My marriage to you was obviously a great mistake. No one was pleased with my marrying a girl of such low degree. My friends will not receive me because of this, and I have now sent for an annulment. You must stop wearing the clothes which should grace a wife of mine, and return to wearing the smock in which you came here. Soon the noble lady whom I am to marry will be coming. Please get the castle in order for her to take over. See to it that everything is replenished and fresh for her. Do you understand what I have said? He asked, for she did not even change her expression of calm serenity as he was speaking. Yes, my lord, said Griselda, smoothing the fine dress she was wearing with her slim hands. I understand. All will be done as you desire. Just let me remove these fineries, and I will take the cleaning of the rooms as my own personal responsibility. I wish you every good fortune in your new happiness. And she went away to remove her clothes. She had preserved in her chest the plain, simple smock in which she had arrived. This she took out and put on. Her jewels, furs, silks, and fine shoes she returned to Walter, and took up her task as housekeeper with much enthusiasm. What went on in her mind and heart no one knew. It did not appear to her that she was badly done by at all, for she just thought she was making good her promise to Walter when he married her, that she would carry out without question everything required of her. She visited her father in his simple house, and spent a day with him, telling him what had happened. You must return here, he cried. I may be a peasant, but you are my beloved daughter, and I will look after you as I did before. I always knew that this would happen. It is not natural that one so high-born as he should take one such as we are for his wife. I will have to go back and prepare everything for the wedding feast, said Griselda, with simple dignity. I have been asked to attend to it, and attend to it I shall. Afterwards, when they are married, I will come back home. So she went back to the castle, walking strongly away in her bare feet, the white smock her only garment. Now the noble Walter had sent a letter to his sister, asking her to send with all speed, dressed in fine clothes and jewels, his daughter. The girl was like a princess, tall and fair, and was most excited about the journey upon which she was going, in her aunt's wonderful coach and 6 horses, but she knew not why. Her younger brother, now a handsome stripling, as good-looking as his father had been at the time of the marriage to Griselda, came too. They both were brought swiftly to the castle and led to the guest chambers. Griselda was waiting at the door with fresh flowers for the supposed bride, and gave them to her with charming grace. Walter called Griselda to him and asked, "Is she not beautiful, my new bride?" And Griselda answered, "Yes, my lord, she is fair. But, and this is the only thing I would like to say to you, I pray you treat this young princess with greater care than you did me, for as she is so delicate and gently born, she might not be able to bear what I have done unquestioningly and faithfully, and her heart might break." Then she went away to prepare the wedding feast with the other servants. The whole castle was decorated with flowers and ribbons. Flags and fine carpets were hung from the balconies. Music and singing came from the minstrels' gallery. People arrived from every part of Walter's dominions to do him honour at his wedding. Still, patient Griselda attended to every detail, waiting upon the lady and her young brother herself, seeing that everything was to their liking. The nobleman called Griselda to him and said, Look, does she not have every feature as you once had when you were young and my wife? Will you not consider her a suitable wife for me, as my people do, and wish her every good fortune?" He looked at her very strangely, waiting to hear her reply. "Yes, my lord," she answered. "She is indeed very fair and young, and I wish you all joy with each other." Her eyes were raised to his, and in them he read all that was true, faithful, and honest. His heart smote him, and he seized her hands in his, pulling himself to his feet. "Dearest Griselda," he cried, "forgive me, for I have tested you cruelly, but I had to know if you really loved me enough to suffer all these things for my sake. Know, sweet and faithful wife, that this princess whom I have brought here and her brother are none other than our own dear children, whom you believed dead. Come, let me place this fur robe upon you, and I pray that you will take your seat here beside me at the table, so that you will, for the rest of our lives, be my own beloved wife." Then at last did Griselda's tears fall, and she wept as she embraced her long-lost daughter and her handsome son, and thanked God that they were returned to her. She swooned twice, and each time her husband raised her up with loving hands. And Walter, his misgivings about her dispelled, did everything in his power to make her forget the dreadful years of her testing. They lived devoted to each other and to their children for the rest of their days, as happy as true and faithful lovers can. Griselda's father, after he understood the tale they told him, was brought to the castle, and he, too, lived the rest of his life in comfort and tranquillity, free of all care.